Hello everyone and welcome to today's Wild Rift guide. In today's guide we're going to be taking a look at Ashe. Ashe is a Dragon Lane marksman. Now she doesn't deal a lot of damage compared to other marksmen in the Dragon Lane. However, she has a very unique and beginner friendly playstyle that a lot of people will enjoy playing. She uses her abilities and auto attacks to slow and crowd control the enemies so her team can follow up and deal a lot of damage. Taking a quick look through the build with Ashe, obviously as a Dragon Lane marksman, you want to focus on a lot of attack damage, attack speed, and getting that critical rate as high as possible. With that three in combination, you'll be able to do a lot of auto attack damage and do more damage with your abilities with Ashe as well. Now, there's two different types of build I want to quickly go over. The first one is more to do with on-hit builds. Has our items like Blade of the Rune King and Black Cleaver. Obviously, Blade of the Rune King gives you the attack damage and attack speed I just mentioned. A little bit of physical vamp as well that does help Ashe survivors. Ashe doesn't really have a lot of mobility, so most of the time she relies on her auto attack. She relies on her slows to be able to kite around the enemy. You do a lot more damage as well with the Rune Strikes passive, attacks dealing bonus physical damage equal to a percentage of the enemy's current health, and you also have the Drain passive as well. So not only do you slow with your auto attacks and your abilities, also hitting an enemy champion with 3 attacks or abilities deal extra magic damage and still 25% of their movement speed. So it helps you slow the enemies even more, so you can keep kiting around, you can keep using your auto attacks and your abilities to chase down the enemies and kill them. RUNES Hurricane is a great item for Ashe, especially because of the Wind's Fury passive. Attack strike 2 additional nearby enemies, each dealing 40% of the attack damage, and these can critical strike and also trigger on-hit effects. Now, the great thing about this is this works with Ashe's passive really well. And if you don't know, with Ashe's passive, I'll explain a little bit more detail later, but basically your auto attack slow. And the great thing is RUNES Hurricane, the extra 2 attacks that you get that spread across multiple enemies, they will also slow as well. So when you're in a team fight, when the enemies are grouped together, you can use this on top of your slows from your passive and also your first ability as well. When that gets built up over time, you can activate the first ability and do a lot of damage when this spreads with the RUNES Hurricane. So a great item. For the boots, most of the time you go for Mercury Treads because you don't really like crowd control with Ashe because you don't really have a lot of movement. You can go for plated steel caps as well if you're against a lot of armor. Protobelt is a go-to boots upgrade, in my opinion. You can go for stasis as well if you're against a lot of assassins, but most of the time Protobelt is better because you don't really have any movement, as I mentioned, so you can just dash around with the Protobelt when it's up and available. Infinity Edge, another great item, attack damage, crit rate, allows your crits to deal more damage as well. If you don't know, with Ashe, with the crits, it actually doesn't allow you to do more damage, it just allows you to slow by 40% instead of 20%, I believe. Again, I'll go into more detail a little bit later on with the abilities, but yeah, just getting crit anyway with Ashe is still really beneficial. But as you can see, most of the build is not really based on crit, it's more based on getting as much attack damage and getting them on hit effects as well. Mortal Reminder, getting the armor penetration is important at this stage of the game. You'll probably get to mid and late game by the time you get Mortal Reminder. Obviously, if you need Grievous Wounds early on, if you're against like a Soraka, Sona, Seraphine, anyone like that shields and heals, then try and get the Executioner's Calling, which is the tier 2 item, which I'll quickly show you. This one here, get this earlier, so you'll be able to get the healing reduction. But yeah, overall, great item, lot of attack damage, armor penetration, really nice. And then last item is Black Cleaver. Now, Black Cleaver, if you don't know, the Sunder passive, dealing physical damage to champions, reduce their armor by 5% for a few seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times. This works well with pretty much all of Ashe's abilities, especially the first ability as well, because you do like a few auto attacks in a very short amount of time. This stacks a Black Cleaver very quickly. So you can use your first ability to stack the Black Cleaver, and then use your abilities after that as well to deal more damage. And obviously you get lots of movement speed as well with the Rage passive, and it's just a bit of a tankier item as well. A lot of maximum health, a lot of attack damage, and you also get a little bit of ability haste as well, which is really nice. Now, another build which you might have seen before, you might have seen me go this build as well. I know a lot of people in NA go this build as well. This is more to do with spamming your abilities. Ashe, in my opinion, doesn't really have a lot of mana problems, but she can run out of mana quite quickly sometimes. So sometimes you can go for items like Mana Immune, which is really nice. You'll be able to pretty much spam your second ability as much as possible, and it's really good for poke damage. And you got items like Slurry Charge Blade as well, which when you use an ability, you'll be able to get that extra crit and extra damage. And you've still got items like Infinity Edge, Mortal Reminder, and Phantom Dancer. This is more based on dealing more damage with your abilities and also your auto attacks as well, dealing more crit damage, and obviously getting as many slows as possible as well with your crits. In terms of the runes, Conqueror still the go-to rune, still really strong. It just allows you to deal more damage. Nothing really to explain there. Weakness is surprisingly a really good rune for Ashe. Now, it says impairing the movement of enemy champions makes them take 5% more damage in the following 5 seconds. Now, the great thing is this works off Ashe's auto attacks. These slows from the auto attacks. So, if you don't know, impairing basically means slows, stuns, anything like that. Ashe's auto attack slow, Ashe's second ability slows, first ability can slow as well when you get auto attacks, the ultimate stuns as well. So Ashe has so many ways to be able to slow and impair the movement of the enemy champion. So being able to deal that extra 5% damage or help your team deal the extra 5% damage could be a big difference. In terms of the second rune, I've gone for Adaptive Carapace, but you can switch this around as well. If you're against a lot of crowd control, then Hunter Titan is also a great rune, but most of the time I like to go for Adaptive Carapace just for that little bit of early game pressure, because Ashe doesn't really do too well in the early game. She's mainly there for the poke in the early game, just to farm up as much as possible. She's more of a scaling champion that does well in the mid to late game when she gets a few levels and a few items up under her belt. And then for the last one, you have Sweet Tooth as well. You can go for Mana Flow Band as well if you do feel like you're running out of mana very quickly with Ashe. You can easily proc Mana Flow Band with your volley, which is really important. But Sweet Tooth for me is just a really nice rune that just gives you the little bit of extra gold and that extra honey fruit healing in the laning phase. And then for the spells, Flash, kind of obvious. You can flash forward, flash back whenever you want to. And then Barrier as well, just being able to absorb that little bit of damage. But yeah, that's pretty much everything about the build. Let's move on to the abilities. First up, we have Ashe's passive, which is Frost Shot. Attacks and damaging abilities slow targets hit by 30% for a few seconds, and attacks against enemies slowed by Frost Shot deal 60% bonus damage. So as mentioned, you don't really get a lot of crit damage. You're more focused on getting the bonus damage from Frost Shot. And as mentioned, Ashe's critical strikes do not deal extra damage. Instead, they increase the Frost Shot slow to 60%, decaying over time. So as you can see, when I use my auto attacks and when I use my abilities, as you can see, there's a little bit of an effect around the target dummy, which shows you that the enemy is affected by Frost Shot. It's the same with abilities as well. As you can see, if I hit multiple enemies with my volley, you can see that it then triggers Frost Shot. So most of the time what you want to do is you want to use your second ability volley before you auto attack. This means that your auto attacks will be able to deal the extra damage because of the Frost Shot damage, as you can see there. For the first ability, we have Ranger's Focus. It has both a passive and an active. The passive is it stores 2 focus while focus range is not active, and attacks grant an additional stack of focus up to 6 times, and stacks fall off over time. And active, for the next 6 seconds, attacks consume a stack of focus to fire with 40% attack speed and barrage the target with a flurry of arrows to deal more damage. So as you can see, where my abilities are in the bottom right hand corner, you can see for the first ability, I currently have 2 stacks. So when auto attack goes up to 3, 4, 5, and when it goes up to 6, you can see that it glows orange. So when I use the ability, as you can see, it will deal a lot of damage, and it actually lasts longer as well, depending on how many stacks you have. So if I, for example, leave it now, it currently has 5 stacks. As you can see, it goes down to 4, down to 3, and then down to 2. So if you use the ability now without using your auto attacks, without stacking your auto attacks, as you can see, it won't last as long, and it will only last a few auto attacks. So how many auto attacks you stack up will depend how long the ability lasts, and this is one of Ashe's main single target damage output. So most of the time you want to wait until you have 6 auto attacks available, and as you can see, with the 6 auto attacks you can deal a lot more damage compared to just using it at the start and just using it for 2 auto attacks. Ashe's second ability is Volley. It fires arrows in a cone dealing physical damage and applying a critical slow from Frost Shot. Enemies can block multiple arrows but take damage once. Now the most important thing about this ability and why you max it first with Ashe is that the bottom part of the ability where it says arrows. So every time you level up the ability you get more arrows available to you. So for example, at the moment I'm maximum level, so I have 11 arrows available, and as you can see, the area of effect of the volley is really wide, and you can use this on multiple allies. But if I reset my level and if I just get 1 point in my W, as you can see, not as many arrows, and it's very thin. It can work really well during the lane phase still, but over time you will be able to, as you level up, you will be able to get more arrows. As you can see, it increases every single time I level it up, and every single time I level it up, you can see that I will be able to get more and more arrows until it reaches level 4, and you can see you have the maximum arrows. So the most important thing to note with this ability is that it can be blocked as well by allies and by enemies, and by minions. So if I try and attack the target dummy that's behind here, if I try and use my second ability here, as you can see, the target dummy in front will block it, so it's always on the first enemy here. But again, this can be blocked by both minions, monsters in the jungle as well, dragons, barons, everything as well. So you have to make sure that you aim this ability to try and hit the right target. But as mentioned before, what you want to do is you mainly want to focus using your second ability and then using auto attacks after that, so you get the bonus damage from the Frost Shot passive. For Ashe's third ability, we have Hawk Shot. It fires a Hawk Spirit that can travel infinitely far and briefly reveals units it flies over. You can recast the ability as well, which explodes the Hawk, grant a vision of the area around it for a few seconds, and units caught in the initial explosion are revealed also for a few seconds. Now, this ability doesn't give Ashe any combat stats, which makes it really, really interesting because, you know, having a marksman that doesn't have an ability that doesn't give you combat stats can sometimes not work in your favor, but surprisingly this ability can be really, really effective. Now, during a laner phase, most of the time you want to use this ability to try and keep track of the enemy jungler. So most of the time you want to use the ability to try and use on the enemy buffs, so like red buff or even blue buff, for example. Now, as you can see, as it flies over, it reveals the area, and you can press it again and use it on the blue buff or the red buff to see where the jungler is. Now, this is really important to keep you alive and to keep you safe, but also to keep your team alive as well and to keep track of the enemy jungler. And then when it gets to the late game as well, you can use this towards big objectives like Baron and Dragon, especially because in Wild Rift there isn't really a lot of wards available and not really a lot of vision available in the game. Hawkshot actually becomes really, really effective. As you can see, I can use this on Baron, Dragon, everywhere as well, and I can recast the ability. And lastly, we have Ashe's ultimate, which is Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Launches a crystal arrow of ice that stuns the first champion hit and deals magic damage to all nearby enemies. The stun lasts between 1.5 to 3.5 seconds, which increases with the distance of the arrow's flight path. You can also recast the ability as well by holding and dragging the button to steer the arrow's flight path. The arrow can only deviate from its original launch angle by a fixed amount, and you can also tap the ability again to cancel and stop the steering. Ashe can still move while the arrow's flight path is being controlled, but will automatically stop steering if Ashe is struck by any crowd control effects. Now, this is kind of Ashe's main initiate tool, and what allows Ashe to kind of be the main engage tool of some team comps sometimes, especially if you don't have any champions that like to go in and be the main initiator like Thresh or like Alistar. You can use ultimate as a initiate effect yourself. Now, as you can see, I'm just going to quickly turn on Fog of War to make sure I don't miss my ultimate. That might be a little bit embarrassing, but as you can see, I can use my ultimate here and I can just stun a target dummy. As you can see, that arrow just goes and it just stuns the enemy. Nice and simple. But again, as I said, you can use this as a main initiate tool if an enemy does overextend. Now, as you can see, Garen is in the base, so I can actually use my ultimate and steer my ultimate as well to just steer around. As you can see, it can't move too much. It can only move left and right a little bit, but you can steer it as much as you can, and it can go all the way into the base. Taking a quick look through the skill order for Ashe, at level 1 you want to go for your second ability. It's a great poking tool early on. It allows you to play passive and use your second ability to farm up minions if you do get in a little bit of danger early on. Then you want to go for your first ability as well to try and get as much single target damage as possible if you do look to engage. And then what you want to do is you want to just keep on maxing the second ability. Now, early on, you don't really need the Hawk Shot. You can go for the Hawk Shot if you do feel like you're in a little bit of danger and you feel like the jungle is nearby, then you can level up Hawk Shot. But what I like to do, I like to just completely ignore Hawk Shot completely in the early game, and I like to just try and get more points into my volley. So just my area effect is a little bit bigger. So as you can see, I'm just going to go for more points in my second ability. At this point, at level 4, you can go for your Hawk Shot, or you can just keep on leveling up the first ability as well. And then your ultimate at level 5, and then you put one more point in your second ability, and then you can use your Hawk Shot at level 6 or level 7 when that first dragon comes up. This means you can use a Hawk Shot around that dragon team fight, and you can try and get vision control for your team. And then you want to max your second ability, getting that maxed up as soon as possible. Then max your first ability, and then lastly is your Hawk Shot. Now, the reason why you do the Hawk Shot last is, as mentioned, it doesn't really give a lot of combat stats. Your volley is the most important one because it increases the amount of arrows that you can fire, and then the first ability as well to get even more damage down. That's pretty much everything for Ashe. I'm going to show you a gameplay now. I'm going to be talking over a gameplay that I did on stream. Hopefully you enjoy that, and I'll see you all in just a second. Alright, on to the gameplay we go with Ashe. This was on my main account when I was Grandmaster. I think it was like 4 diamond teammates in this game. So this gameplay was quite interesting. Not the not the best in terms of, you know, how many kills I got, but kind of showing you how to play Ashe and how you can utilize Ashe's slows and her abilities to allow your team to be the carries for you. As I mentioned, you know, Ashe doesn't do the most in terms of damage. You know, she's not a Xayah or a Lucian or a Vayne or anything like that. She doesn't really have the highest damage output. She's more to do with the slows. She's more to do with, you know, helping your team be the carries rather than yourself. So, like, not really the sort of champion I'd recommend to play in solo queue, to be honest, because most of the time you want to try and be that carry as a dragon laner. But she's still a really, really fun champion to play. And as mentioned before, you know, she's very, very beginner friendly and she's really, really easy to play. In the early game, I'm against the Caitlyn Lulu, which is a pretty tough lane for Ashe. Ashe has quite a, you know, high attack range, but Caitlyn has the highest attack range in the game. So it's really, really hard. As you can see here, I'm just playing passive early on, just making sure that I could just, you know, stay away from the Caitlyn and the Lulu. You can see that I'm going to try and use my volley as much as possible to try and poke out the Caitlyn. I'm going to try and get slows off as well. But in the early game, as mentioned, you know, the most important part is just playing safe and just farming up as much as possible. You see, I took a lot of damage there, unfortunately, because I auto-attacked the Caitlyn, so I took minion aggro, and also I got netted by the Caitlyn, which just shows you the extra range that Caitlyn can offer in lane phase can be really, really tough for Ashe. You can see that Master Yi is down the duo lane at the moment. We're going in for an engage here. Nothing really we can do at the moment. Master Yi is coming in as well, but they both still have flash up and available, so nothing really going to happen there. I'm just focused on trying to get the early farm and trying to get as much gold as possible. You can see I did put a point into the third ability this game. You know, it's kind of a sort of a, you know, however you feel like. If you feel like you need the extra damage early, extra vision early on, it can be really, really nice. There you can see a really, really good hook by the Thresh. We auto attack and we get the slows off as well, and we do a lot of damage. Unfortunately, Caitlyn does get a kill as well. But you can see there, if you have any sort of crowd control in your lane, you can then put that on top of your slow that Ashe offers as well, and you can do a lot of damage. You can see I'm using a hawk shot here just to keep an eye on the jungler to see if there's anything else happening, which gives us a vision that Camille is moving back towards her jungle. So we got the first kill of the game, which is all good. Not first kill of the game, sorry. We got the first kill for us at least. The first kill for us in the game. So really, really good start. But again, yeah, like I mentioned with Ashe, you know, the main important thing with her in the lane phase is you just want to play passive. She doesn't really have a lot of mobility. She doesn't have any dashes. So if she does get caught out by any sort of crowd control or any gank, she can be in a lot of trouble. So poking with your volley, with your second ability, as you can see here, and just following that with with auto attacks afterwards, so you get your frost shot bonus damage on your passive, is probably the best thing you could do during the laning phase. Go for Blade to the Rune King this game as well, which is not that bad this game. There's a lot of champions building a lot of health this game. You can see I'm using my Enchanted Crystal Arrow on top of my auto attacks and my Ranger's Focus as well to deal more damage. But unlucky for me, Caitlyn still has flash available even from that last exchange, so we wasn't able to get the kill. But still, as you can see, you know, a lot of crowd control, a lot of damage that you can do with Ashe, even in the early game as well. But unfortunately, Caitlyn did have flash available, so I wasn't able to do that much. So I'm trying to play a little bit aggressive here. I'm trying to poke them down with my volley to try and get them to stay in lane, because we can try and look for a tower dive here. I believe their jungler is just coming. I believe we saw the jungler just then, if I remember correctly. No, I'm pretty sure I just saw the jungler there, but I'm not really too sure. Probably in the tri-bush. I wasn't able to use my hawk shot in the tri-bush. But yeah, another hook lands by Thresh again onto the Lulu. We follow that up as well. Unfortunately, though, Fizz is here to save the day for the for the Lulu in the end. I wasn't able to follow up because I didn't have my ultimate or anything available. The Lulu did die in the end, so it was a 1-for-1 trade. But overall, not the best trade in my opinion. So I wasn't able to find the Fizz with the hawk shot with the third ability. So that probably made Thresh play a little bit more aggressive because maybe he didn't really see anyone. But it looks like Fizz was able to just dodge out of the vision, which obviously sometimes can happen with Ashe. You know, sometimes if you do use your third ability and if you don't see anyone, you still have to play quite passive, because there still could be someone that maybe is just a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, because it doesn't have the biggest width. You can see Master Yi playing a little bit aggressive there. Kind of an interesting one, trying to win 1 versus 2. But we got our Blade to the Rune King now. We have 1 kill, we have 1 assist under our belt as well. We got a little bit of early game gold lead. Camille taking the Rift Herald on the top side of the map, and unfortunately wasn't able to take the Drake because our Thresh did die. So the Drake is still up and available. The Rift Herald's gone down, so our top laner needs to be, or Baron laner, sorry, needs to be a little bit careful. But as you can see now, you know, my volley is doing a lot. My volley has that increased arrows now, so I can push the lane as quick as I can with the ranger's focus as well. And the reason why I'm pushing this lane here is it's because I want to try and get control over this dragon pit. Another thing I forgot to mention as well, actually, is that the Hawkshot actually reveals wards for a short duration. So you can kind of use it as a sweeper in a way as well. I wouldn't really recommend it, but you can use it as a sweeper. And as you can see, you know, it does have a long cooldown, so I wouldn't really recommend it most of the time. As you can see here, the dragon fight is starting. I'm using my crystal arrow. I'm trying to keep my distance from the enemy team. And I'm just able to kite around and use my Blade of Rune King and my slows to be able to get a little bit more damage. As you can see, Kennen is here as well, using her ultimate and using everything she has available as well. Fizz gets a triple kill, I get another kill, and Fizz gets a quadra kill. So I was able to use my Uncharted Crystal Arrow to stun a few members inside the Dragon Pit, which kind of stopped them a little bit or delayed them a little bit with the engage. And afterwards, I was just playing back. I was trying to play as passive as possible because I know Camille could jump on top of me and ultimate me, and I'm kind of stuck. So I was able to play a little bit passive. I used my barrier to help myself against a Fizz, waiting for the Kennen to come up, use her ultimate, and in the end, we got quite a few assists. Unfortunately, we didn't get any kills, but quadra kill for Corki, you know, we'll take it. 1 kill, 0 deaths, and 5 assists. You'll probably find that this a lot with Ashe as well. You'll probably see that with Ashe, you'll get a lot of assists. And it's not really a bad thing, you know. Assists still count towards gold in the end. Assists still help give you that little bit of extra gold. But as mentioned, you know, Ashe doesn't really have the highest damage output. She's all about the slow. She's all about the utility that she offers as well. I didn't have my Hawkshot available for that team fight to be able to use it in the Dragon Pit, but we still used our ultimate really, really effectively there to stun multiple members and do a lot of damage. And we also used our second ability as well and our first ability to just slow the enemies and deal as much damage as possible. Now, we can see the Camille there. Unfortunately, I missed her with the Hawkshot, but we can still see her as well. As you can see, I'm just using my second ability here to just do a little bit of damage and deal a bit of poke damage as well. Just say to the enemies, look, I'm here. I do a lot of damage. I have my Enchanted Crystal Arrow ready, so you need to be a bit careful of me. I'm a little bit worried of the Fizz, but I can see her see that Fizz is now back in mid lane, trying to engage onto the Corki, but nothing going on there. So yeah, we got the Blade Rune King. We're now working towards the RUNES Hurricane. Just trying to get that spread damage is really, really nice. And the great thing about Ashe as well is she actually has a lot of wave clear. As you can see, you know, you can kind of do a lot of damage quite quickly with Ashe as well. And as you can see, great hook here by the Lulu. I follow that up with the Enchanted Crystal Arrow with all the damage as well that we can get, which is really, really nice. I was able to push the minion wave as well at the same time. So nice and easy. Master Yi here trying to kill the Caitlyn, but unfortunately couldn't kill the Caitlyn in the end. I could have maybe flashed here and actually tried to kill the Caitlyn and auto-attacked. It probably would have worked, to be honest. But I thought I could get in range to be able to use my volley, but unfortunately not. And as you can see here, unfortunately Fizz is here to ruin my day, and I die for it. So a little bit of a fortunate situation. Master Yi was trying to tower dive the Caitlyn, but unfortunately he wasn't able to get the kill. But Corki, for Fizz Roman, was able to get the mid lane tower, which was quite nice anyway. And as mentioned, you know, if you can follow up the crowd control of your team with the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, or do it the other way around, you know, using your Enchanted Crystal Arrow as the initial engage, and then Thresh can follow that up with the flame, with the hook as well at the same time. So again, not a bad exchange, but unfortunately we didn't have any vision in the river. I'm not too sure if I've had my Hawkshot available. I probably did. I probably should have used my Hawkshot in the river to see if the Fizz was roaming down. A little bit of a misplay there. I probably should have realized how low I was on HP and how much damage or how easily the Fizz can roam around the map. So a little bit of a misplay to die there, but in the end, not too bad. You know, Thresh again looking for the hook. Probably could have looked for a hook there, to be honest, because I have the Enchanted Crystal Arrow available. But as you can see, Fizz is here again. Fizz is looking for another tower dive. Great hook by the Thresh, actually. But yeah, 4-man tower dive. This is not really the place that we want to be. I try and use my Protobelt and my Flash to try and get away, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to deal enough damage, and I wasn't able to survive the 4-man tower dive. But as you can see, Corki and Kennen is here, and hopefully they're able to clean up the fight. Master Yi gets a kill here. Corki gets a kill as well. Corki gets a double kill. You have the Slicing Maelstrom as well by Kennen, and they were able to clean up the fight. And they weren't able to take the bot lane tower from it as well. So, not really much I could have done yet there in that situation. I think the only way I would have played that differently is probably stayed underneath the tower for a little bit longer. I tried to use my Flash and my Protobot to create distance between me and the Fizz and the Fiora. But unfortunately, my ultimate only hit the Fizz and didn't hit the Fiora as well. So Fiora was able to dash on towards me, and I was like, okay, I can't escape this. Let me just try and go back towards the tower. I think a better situation there would have been for me to stay under the tower for the whole time and try and focus the champion that has been attacked by the tower, so I can try and do as much damage as possible and maybe try and get a kill from it. But in the end, you know, our team rotated to mid lane really, really well, and we was able to get a few kills as well. You can see we're trying to catch out the Fizz here. I use my ultimate. I can use my Ranger's Focus as well to do a lot of single target damage, and there we go, another kill under our belt. So you can see that Ashe doesn't deal the most in terms of damage, but does have a lot of utility and a lot of crowd control that she can offer. We're trying to kite around the Camille here. We're trying to get the kill, but unfortunately Camille's just survives during the stasis. The Corki bomb eventually did get the Camille, but unfortunately there was nothing going on. But yeah, Master Yi and Kennen doing their typical split push as we hear the notification of Chief's raid as always, the legend Chief himself. If you don't know Chief, Chief is a fellow Twitch streamer and also YouTuber as well. So Chief Aragon is his name. You've probably seen his name pop up. If you do want, you know, more jungle content, then he is definitely someone to check out. I believe I still have the notification sounds on. I think they'll be fixed in the next few videos. I think there's a couple more videos where it's going to be like that, but I did fix the audio in the end, and it will be just gameplay audio in the future. But you'll still see the pop-ups and everything, but I don't think the pop-ups are too big of a deal. If it is a bit of a problem, then please do let me know. But here we go. We're into like the mid and late game now with Ashe. And as you can see here, that's the perfect example of using the hook shot to clear vision as well. So really, really nice that you can actually use the ability. Unfortunately here, I kind of misplayed a little bit. But in the end, I was able to kite around the Fizz. And if I remember correctly, I was able to kill the Fizz as well. There we go. Nice little cheeky outplay there. I missed the Uncharted Crystal Arrow. I kind of messed up with my Protobelt as well. I think I should have Protobelt a little bit earlier. But I was able to survive. I was able to use my slows. And that's another thing as well. Using the slows for Ashe to be able to kite the enemies. And creating that kind of... You called it like spacing. Like AD spacing. Or auto attack spacing. Creating that distance between you and the enemy champion. If you can create the spacing, if you can use your slows to help you out with that as well, you know, there'll be situations like that where Fizz can't really jump on top of you because he's melee range, so he won't be able to jump on top of you and do enough damage. But cheeky little outplay there, which was really, really nice to see. But as you can see, you know, gold lead at the moment is not really doing, you know, we're not doing too bad in terms of the gold lead. The game is very, very close though, to be honest. You know, it's not an easy game to say the least. It is a very, very close game. But we're doing quite well, you know, cheeky little outplay on the Fizz, you know, see you later maybe, see you next time. Corki's still really, really strong as well. Corki's obviously scaling a lot into the late game. Ashe is more of a scaling champion, I would say as well, because when you get into the late game or when you get more items available and more abilities available, it is really, really nice. Fizz going a little bit too deep here. I'm trying to do as much damage as I can to the Fizz, and then moving it over to Lulu as well, but unfortunately I did go a little bit too far here and I did die. I unfortunately stepped on a trap there, which is kind of the big misplay for me. I'm not too sure if the trap was there the whole time and I just completely missed it, or if she put it down at the perfect time. But a little bit of an overextension, which sometimes can happen. If you feel like you can get the kill and if you feel like you can deal enough damage, you will overextend. That's just a typical ADC thing to do, or a typical Dragon Lane carry thing to do. But you have to make sure that you're with your team with Ashe. You know, as mentioned, you know, if I was a Lucian, a Xayah, or maybe a Vayne, or even a Kai'Sa there, I probably would have killed them and I probably would have easily been able to escape. But with Ashe, you don't have a lot of mobility, you don't have a lot of damage, so you need to make sure you stay with your team with Ashe. That's kind of the main focus point with Ashe. Dragon's up and available in a few seconds. We have our items, we have our... I think we nearly got Infinity Edge completed. We got Blade Rune King, we got the Runes Hurricane, and we nearly got the IE as well. You can see that my team's getting a little bit caught out here, but I'm using my Enchanted Crystal Arrow. I was able to hit Lulu, which gives Master Yi that little bit of a reset. As you can see here, I'm focusing on the Caitlyn, so the rest of my team is going to be okay. Unfortunately, though, I step on another trap again using my Protobelt, but I was able to do enough damage that the rest of the team follows up, and that's when the GGs come in, and that's when the surrender vote comes in. So again, Ashe, not the best in terms of damage output, but as you can see, if you can use your Enchanted Crystal Arrow, if you can land your Enchanted Crystal Arrow as well, in this game, our team didn't have the best of crowd control. We did have like Slice and Maelstrom and, you know, Thresh Hooks and things like that as well, but we didn't have the best. But as you can see in the end, damage-wise, not too bad. Corki still did a lot of damage, but we did do 17,000 damage. The only reason Caitlyn probably beat me in terms of damage because I stepped on her trap a few times, but we can practice Ashe a little bit more and we'll be okay. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this guide. Thank you all for watching up to this point. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments as always. And stay tuned for the next Wild Rift guide that will be coming out very, very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Peace.